Have you ever had that feeling where your mind just temporarily crashes? Like it dropped frames or somehow loaded the completely wrong texture for reality? You know, your brain is an absolute biological powerhouse. It is processing roughly 11 million bits of sensory information every single second. But your conscious mind, it only actually handles about 50 of them. And occasionally, amidst all that massive data crunching, the hardware just glitches. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are running a full tech support diagnostic on the human operating system. We're going to break down some of the most bizarre psychological bugs and neurological software failures that you have probably experienced yourself. And we'll get into exactly why your brain acts this way. Because, let's face it, unlike a smartphone, we can't exactly just turn our brains off and back on again. Well, aside from a good night's sleep, anyway. Okay, let's dive right into this. Our diagnostic today covers 4 main subsystems. Number 1, sensory and rendering bugs. 2, audio and output errors. 3, memory and background simulations. And 4, emotional system overloads. Starting off at Section 1, sensory and rendering bugs. Let's look at what happens when our front-end perceptual hardware misfires. So imagine this vivid scenario. You're just sitting in your room, minding your own business, but suddenly you look down and your hands look like these massive, oversized props. You look up and your bedroom door, which you know is just a few steps away, suddenly feels like it's 50 feet down a long corridor. You shake your head to clear it, but reality just stays completely warped. Now you might be thinking you're hallucinating, but you're not. This is actually Wonderland Syndrome. It's a temporary spatial distortion. Essentially, your brain's internal measuring tape, which is managed specifically in your parietal lobe, totally fails. Everything in your room is exactly where it should be, but your perceptual processing unit is glitching. It turns the physical world into this weird elastic dream sequence because it's suddenly rendering everything at the completely wrong scale. Or hey, how about this one? You open your eyes, look at a beautifully plain, clean white wall, but you don't actually see a solid color. Instead, you notice this constant layer of fine, buzzing, static overlaying everything in your vision. It is exactly like looking at an old analog TV tuned to a dead channel, just hovering right over your reality. This is what's known as visual snow syndrome. It's a sensory processing glitch where an area of the brain called the lingual gyrus becomes hyperactive. It literally fails to filter out background visual noise. Just imagine having a permanent lo-fi static filter stuck on your perception 24/7. It's a fascinating rendering bug where the static simply never ever clears up. All right, let's move to Section 2, audio and output errors. Time to check the brain's language processing centers. Picture this for a second. Someone casually says the most mundane word to you, like calendar, and instantly the highly distinct taste of scrambled eggs fills your mouth. Or maybe they say Tuesday and you immediately taste sour lemons. Your audio input is somehow involuntarily triggering a physical flavor output. This is an ultra-rare condition called lexical gustatory synesthesia. It happens when the neural pathways in your cortex for auditory language and for taste physically crosswire. Just think about how absolutely wild this hardware crosswiring is. You could literally be sitting there negotiating a serious business deal while constantly tasting burnt toast and paper clips with every single word that is spoken. But actually, scratch that. Sometimes the glitch isn't about what you take in, it's about what you output. Imagine waking up from a quick nap, speaking a sentence, and realizing you are now speaking with a distinct French or British accent, even though you've never left your hometown. This is foreign accent syndrome. When the brain's language center, usually Broca's area, sustains a sudden microglitch or damage, it totally rewires your motor speech timing and your tongue placement. It's basically a forced software update to a completely new dialect patch. And the crazy part? You simply cannot turn it off. Now, let's look at 2 incredibly common audio compilation errors. First up, semantic satiation. Try saying the word apple 50 times in a row right now. By repetition 30, the word completely loses its meaning and just transforms into a series of weird alien sounds. Through a mechanism called reactive inhibition, the neurons firing that specific meaning literally run out of energy temporarily, severing the link between the sound and the concept. Second, we have earworms. You know, when a catchy jingle replays 400 times in one afternoon? Trying to stop it is like fighting mental quicksand. That's because of the Zeigarnik effect. Your memory system is desperately stuck trying to resolve an unfinished sound pattern. Moving on to Section 3, memory and background simulations. Let's analyze how the brain runs background processes and edits our long-term data.
Consider the Tetris effect. After grinding a repetitive puzzle game or doing a repetitive physical task all day, you close your eyes to sleep and the blocks just keep falling. The road keeps stretching out in front of you. Your procedural memory is locked into a continuous loop, running background simulations long after you've stopped the activity. Contrast that with the Mandela Effect, like distinctly remembering the Monopoly man wearing a monocle when he never actually did. The shared false memory proves that human memory isn't just a recorded read-only video file. It's a highly vulnerable shared document that literally gets edited and rewritten over time. Finally, let's get into Section 4, Emotional System Overloads. What happens when the feelings hardware just completely crashes? We've all been here, right? Here's a scenario many of us know way too well. You finish an incredibly immersive video game, or you get to the end of a thick, gripping novel, and you feel genuine, heavy heartbreak over a character. You are experiencing deep, profound grief for someone who never actually existed in the real world. We call this the fictive loop. Neurologically speaking, your limbic system and your mirror neurons, which are the hardware responsible for empathy, they simply don't distinguish between observed real-life experiences and deeply immersive stories. If the simulation rendered well enough while you were reading or playing, your brain logs the emotional weight of that fictional story as absolute, real history. And sometimes, that emotional overload directly affects your view of the real world itself. Imagine walking down the street. Everything looks totally normal, but suddenly, it all feels deeply fake. It feels like you're walking through a movie set, or like you're watching your own life unfold from behind a thick sheet of glass. This deeply unsettling sensation, it's called derealization. During moments of extreme stress, your brain's amygdala essentially triggers an emergency shutoff. It suppresses the prefrontal cortex to temporarily drop your emotional connection to your environment. So yes, it's a glitch, but it's actually initiated as a protective firewall to distance you from a complete emotional overload. So sometimes reality just feels like it's buffering. Our brains are incredibly complex biological hardware. We process immense amounts of data every single second. And you know what? Sometimes the system just needs a minute to catch up. And that leads to these incredibly weird, yet entirely understandable neurological glitches. So, which of these human operating system glitches have you experienced the most? And more importantly, if our hardware can be tricked into tasting words, warping space, and faking reality this easily, how much of your daily life is actually real, and how much is just a hallucination that you've agreed to accept? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. I'd love to read them. And if you want to explore more of these deep dive explainers into the mind, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Until next time, keep your systems updated.